Welcome to a comprehensive report on the topic communication aids and strategies using tools of technology. This is a very important component in enhancing our communication as far as purposive communication is concerned. And it is not only for specific group of people, but it is for people with diverse needs such as your profession in the future. Now, in this report, we will explore the importance of communication aids and strategies using tools of technology, their types, applications, and it also would involve the evolving landscape of assistive technologies, which I believe you will be able to relate later on. This video lecture would also provide you an understanding of what is or what are the roles of communication aids as it plays an empowering and enabling facet in effective communication, especially for people who has diverse needs. And we would also highlight, and perhaps you can also use it in application, the latest advancements in terms of technology. Now, communication aids and strategies using tools of technology. We ask first the question, what is communication aid? Okay, the term itself would tell you that this has something to do with communication and what how do we make communication better in terms of using support and doing it effectively. So, communication aids are again visual support, which is used to make presentations interesting and effective. Now, as students, I believe that you always encounter teachers who would ask you to report. Now, for the entire semester, reporting lang. And I keep on telling this to students who happen to talk to me about reporting that the primary reason why perhaps I assume teachers would ask students to report is for the actual encounter with the subject or with the lesson that you are assigned to report. And if that's the case, when you have a first-hand experience rather than just listening, you will remember it best. But of course, it's not nice to have the reporting for the rest of the semester. Aside from that, communication aids also is a great help to present ideas clearly. In what way? By emphasizing the significant or important information of a certain report or presentation of ideas. Which is why when you will be reporting, it's not nice to just read. Of course, everybody can read. However, you must just give the, let's just say, concise ideas of what is being flashed on your slide. Okay, aside from that, communication aids are also called as the AAC, or it is the abbreviation of what we call as augmentative and alternative communication, meaning to say there is really another way or a better not a better way another way of doing communication effectively. However, there is also communication aids which focus or aim is just to help you present your ideas in a better manner. Okay, now AAC is also defined as a huge range of techniques that supports or replace spoken communication. Because, as been said, 21st century learners are visual learners, meaning to say you learn best when you see something. Which is why most of your teachers, even when you were in preschool, uses videos, PowerPoints, pictures, and all because it's a better way for you to be able to figure out, to visualize and internalize what is being discussed of you because there is AAC. Okay, now let's proceed to technology based communication aids. Now, these are the most common. aids in communication, which are, of course, technology based. Now, when we say technology based, it has something to do with not only computers, but also the help of the World Wide Web or the internet. Now, there are like six images in there, and those six are the most used technology based communication aids. So, the first one you can see here at then it's email. Second is video conferencing. Then we have video logging or vlogs. Then we have the social media, we have PowerPoints, and we have text messaging, or let's just say iMessaging. When we talk about emails, this is still one of the most used messaging application using the World Wide Web. And even until today, in the present, that we have Discord, we have um, what they call this Telegram, we have other stuff that I'm not really aware of. Still, email is still the most dominant used because it's like the way how business works. Even if you are in a remote area, you can still send emails using like special connections and everything. And aside from that, emails are like the electronic snail mail. However, snail mails are still not outdated. We still receive letters that are printed, meaning to say it's still not outdated. During the pandemic, one of the most relevant, not discovery, but innovation of man is the Zoom and Google Meet. We also have the MS Teams, and there's still a lot of those video conferencing apps. Now, why is it most innovative? It's because that what made people connect despite the distance, and it offered a lot of other apps aside from the messaging. It also offered like sharing of screen, and then even Discord, as I just discovered about Discord just recently. That yeah, it was nice. Anyway, PowerPoint, you know what's PowerPoint, and then we also have, of course, social media. We can share almost everything, including watch together in Messenger. That and text messaging, or it's actually not text messaging, but what I mean is iMessage, or yeah, if you are an Apple user, basically you know what is iMessaging. So this technology-based communication aids would help you be interactive in your presentation. There are times when you attend a seminar or perhaps in your class that would teacher would say just scan the QR code using your phones. Now that is an example of how technology aids communication even without demanding too much to your audience. And the communication is like in at the same level since you are using and your audience and you as a speaker are facing the same material. Okay, that is for technology based communication. Next, we have communication aids example. Now, we have here what are the examples of communication aids. So, these are normally used by your teachers. Okay, first example, we have TED Talk. Then we have Canva. This I am using Canva right now. Then we have LinkedIn, SlideShare, and Prezi. Now, what are communication aids based on the examples? Now, these are applications that still uses the World Wide Web or the internet to emphasize what you're trying to deliver in your message, but in a manner that it won't just be talking. As mentioned earlier, communication aid doesn't really replace the speaking, but it allows more interaction and more vivid, clear examples, illustrations to your listeners or to your audience. So TED Talk is actually mostly found on YouTube, and these are videos that discusses specific topics. I mean, almost everything is in TED Talk now. Canva is like an application where you can make posters, PowerPoints, like videos, and everything that is at least not just something that can be done in Microsoft Word. I mean, almost everything is possible in Canva. For SlideShare LinkedIn, you can upload your PowerPoints and all and share it to others. And you can also download those content, mostly documents and PowerPoints from others. Now, Prezi is like been around since time immemorial, and it is more interactive. However, it is a bit complicated to use. So again, these are just examples of communication aids. What are communication aids? These are applications that we can use to help us in our presentation of stuff, especially when you do reporting. Um, I discourage you to use the AI PowerPoints because it would just give you an easy time, but it hinders you to explore more on your creativity. Canva has a lot of stuff to offer, so it's better to go manual. Now, let's talk about communication strategies. I mentioned about visual and, of course, spoken communication earlier. This goes back to our lesson in the first part of prelim about the communication forms. We have verbal, nonverbal, and visual. Now, communication is not one way. So if there's no response, there's no communication, there's no perfect communication process. So in order to avoid the one-way communication, which normally happens in class, where your teacher discusses and you don't respond or you don't interact, that means to say that the teacher is only having a one-way what conversation perhaps with herself because there's no feedback. Now, these communication strategies is where we can ensure that there is really a feedback because we're using aids to communicate. So communication is the exchange of information between a sender and a receiver. As I told you earlier, it's not one way. So we have verbal, nonverbal, and visual. Now we know what is verbal. Okay, verbal is a communication that can be either written or oral. Okay, now we talked about this one before that verbal communication is not only oral, but it can be written and oral. Okay, now in in communication strategies using communication aids, it can be in a form of verbal communication. So you can present your communication aids by speaking, and you can also do by writing. For example, in infographics, those are in written form. Then, like, this is an example of an oral communication where I use a communication aid. Next is nonverbal, meaning you're not really talking. So, nonverbal communication consists of normally body language, and physical distance, I'm sorry, such as body language, facial expressions, physical distance between communicators, or the tone of your voice. Now, one of the strategy in making sure that communication aids are being manifested well is by nonverbal communication. So you can just use your body language to make sure that your message is um, directed to your audience. Next is visual. Now, visual strategies can be seen through signs, web pages, and illustrations. You're seeing a PowerPoint right now, and this is an example of a visual communication strategy. Now, this is actually the combination of the three. I am speaking to you with my PowerPoint, and that is verbal. And then while I was talking to you, you can see in my face that I am not just reading, but I am actually working with my hands and my face. That's done verbal. And then you see my PowerPoint again, and that is visual strategy. Okay, so those are like the three communication strategies. Now let's proceed to multimedia, which is the use of tools of technology. Okay, now technology is very powerful that it allows almost the impossible to be possible as long as it is under the use of anything in the internet. Now, before messaging, calling is quite impossible. Until Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone, And as years went by, the way on how to call innovated innovation until the time that our phones became smart, but people became stupid, right? That's why we keep on asking AI to do things for us. However, if we use well, multimedia or technology can help us to reach more and to improve ourselves in many ways. So we have here multimedia. Now, whenever I hear multimedia, it always brings me to my time when I was a student like you, a college student, because it was MMS before. Since there's no touchscreen yet, but there are colored phones. We call that colored phones because you can receive pictures, but of course it's very low quality. Perhaps it's 144. It's the standard quality of the pictures. Anyway, multimedia, what is it? It is a content that uses a combination of different content such as text, audio, images, animations, video, and interactive content. So, if you have a teacher who is very tech savvy, everything from text to audio to videos and animations can be observed in their slides. Okay? Now, that's why it's called multi, meaning it's not just one or two, but there's a lot of media forms in one presentation. Next, we have here the traditional visual and audio media, meaning to say, when we say traditional, we are talking about my time. But then, some of these are still used until now, even in the 21st century classroom instruction. So the first image here, it is like OHP. It's very dominant when I was in high school and college, especially during the time when I was in high school at the University of Bohol, Day High School. A teacher keeps on bringing, even no, even in meetings, they use OHP. It's like overhead projector where there's an acetate that you can print what you would like to project. And then it's just there. It's so touching to experience the innovation of how technology became very apparent, especially in the education system. Now we also have flip charts. It's a good thing that I no longer write in the Manila paper, but I guess I've tried this one in one of my classes before. I have to write in the Manila paper because it saves time from writing on the board, especially when I have same classes. Next, we have the whiteboard pen, of course. You will always remember me as the teacher who keeps on writing on the board, and that is a traditional visual media. Then we have handouts. Still the same. I mean, your teachers are still doing this because of the absence of, again, technology in the classroom. Then we have visual cameras. So camera, it's used, when you use camera, they are to take pictures of your notes and everything. It is a traditional media. So see, it's not only us who are using traditional visual and audio media, but also you, especially when you take pictures of the notes. That is a traditional media. So what's the panibago? It's when your teacher just sends you a soft copy. See, it makes sense. Next, we have strategies using the tools of technology. Now, what are the things that we have to put in mind, especially to you, is if you're a first year, you may you may find this video recording very beneficial. But if you're already in fourth year, you just follow what you know and just listen to me until the end of this lecture. So first is to keep it simple. Do not exaggerate. However, there are teachers who likes it to be very fancy. Now always go for the rubric of your teacher. But then keeping it simple, meaning to say, you don't over exaggerate it. You can see that my slides are actually a bit exaggerated. Yeah, I think so. But it's because it's my first time after a long time to make a PowerPoint. And the creativity has been overflowing lately. Next is to emphasize your key ideas. When you use technology as a communication aid, you don't put everything at once and just read it because it's funny to think how people can read and you also just read. So just don't. So when you report, you may put everything in your slide. However, you will just need to emphasize the key ideas. Next, show what you can't say. Meaning to say, you need to put more of the visuals rather than just words. Now, instead of just putting a word for something, you can put an image so that you can expound more. Next is to use close-up shots and other images. Do not use, for example, if you're referring to a certain person, do not put a picture that that person is very small in the picture and the background is so big. So as much as possible, if you're going to use images, make sure it's close up, and the your audience will not be wondering asa akong gitanaw ana. Next, keep the number of images you present manageable. Don't put too much, especially if it is not relevant. Just put what is manageable. Next, combine variety with coherence. Now, if you are going to put words and audio and video in one slide, make sure that they go along together. Do not over exaggerate. And next is to use large lettering. Do not use small font, nor use font face that is thin. Now, your purpose for using communication aid is to help you in your presentation, and it is quite ironic if you'll be using small fonts. So just use large fonts or large lettering. Okay, now let's proceed to the next slide, which is on what are the special features of a CBP or something that's called as computer-based presentation? Now, when we say computer-based presentation, anything that can be presented using the computer. First, custom navigation. Now, when you will be creating PowerPoints, or let's just say you are making a PowerPoint or any presentation, you can custom navigate. Meaning to say you can edit, you can put highlighting on it, you can put images, you can put whatever it is that you can add to make it custom navigated. Next is printouts. Most everything aside from audio and videos can be printed. So that is what makes a CBP like a bit better compared to the traditional one. And of course, you can upload. That is why during the pandemic, everything is uploaded in a drive, sent in an email, sent in messenger, notes, and everything. So that is like the few things that makes computer-based presentation better and really can aid you in your communication. Next, these are some tips. This is my last slide. These are some tips on how to make your multimedia presentation better. First, you need to go for creativity. Decide on what is your theme. Now, if your lesson is about development of the psychosocial development of a person, then you go for a slide that has something to do with development. Now, there are already themes that you can search online, then go for that. Don't go for a spooky if it is not about Halloween. Don't go for the merry if it is a sad kind of slide. So always go for creativity and make sure you know your theme. Next, colors make it beautiful. Of course, it depends on who is your audience. If you're in the elementary, you always go for the light colors, the GIFs, the with sound effects and everything. But for college, sometimes it is more on the monochromatic. However, colors would always make a difference. Next is use good fonts. Now, don't use a font that is not readable, the cursive fonts. So those are ugly fonts that's not really good for presentation. So always good for go for fonts that can make your audience read what you are presenting, read without using the question mark kung unsa ganito. So use good fonts that is readable. Next is text evil. So what do you mean? What do you mean when we say tax evil? This is when we put so much text in a certain slide. Who of you here are like doing text even. Like in one slide, you put everything. So there is like a certain rule on that. It's like 777 or 575. The five words, 555, five words in one line, and there's only five lines. So it depends. I think the rules have changed. So do not put everything in one slide because, as I told you, communication aids are just trying to help you present your ideas better. So you can use images and elaborate it. Next, images say more than 1,000 words. Exactly. So this is what I said earlier, and big is beautiful. The bigger, of course, not the biggest. It's not like one word, one slide. It's not like that. So you have to balance it off. Next, infographics are amazing. Use simple infographics. Now, when we say infographics, these are what? Graphics that gives information. To put it simply, you don't need to, it's like connected to the second box that you don't have to put more words, but just put more images, adequate images that can help you expand and expound your ideas better. Next is the last one is to get inspired, meaning to say that while you're making actually while I was making this slide, it took me like how many hours because I need to visualize and see for myself if I were the audience, if I were the one listening to myself while I'm presenting, would I also be hooked into the material? So I don't really know in your end, but then I think this is satisfactory. It's not really ugly. It's not too beautiful, but I think it is enough. Okay, so these are the tips that I can provide you on while you're making or if you will make your own presentation. So here are my references and I would give you what is your activity in your class. Thank you very much for listening. I am uploading this video to YouTube as well. I'll just be providing the link in your group chat so that you can watch it at any time that you wish for. Thank you very much and